What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 9 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Khatep Immortal Empires campaign. So as we saw last time, we got a little bit of work from the new guys, whether it be the Green Skulls, the Krokagar Legion, the Golden Host of Mahrok with the Deepwood Scouts and the Scorpions, as well as the Lords that commanded them. Lots of new stuff to play with, and hopefully we're taken towards a lot more. Otherwise, we have nearly destroyed Aetane. They are just stuck at the Maelstrom now, unless I'm mistaken, and as soon as we take out Volzanville over here, we'll be moving north to destroy or subjugate them, depending on what is available to us as an option, and then looping back around to take the entire donut and hopefully vassalize Yvres. Mostly, we're probably not going to bother holding too much territory on the donut itself. I'm willing to make the exception for the White Tower of Hoeth, maybe, and because the research rate is quite nice for the Tomb Kings. And, well, actually, all regions faction-wide construction cost reduction and with some magic power reserve capacity faction-wide. Very, very nice. Much better, I would think, than the Gates of Lothern, at least for us, who eventually won't care about the money situation at all. Anyway, two things before we get started. Unfortunately, we did not reach the engagement threshold this time around. The views are there, but the likes and comments are not, so we'll be returning to the standard episode length, and so we don't have a lot of time. In that light, we're going to make a few changes and try to play it a little bit faster, as it may mean a somewhat shorter campaign than originally anticipated. So, what we're going to do is uncollect the income in all of our territories, and thereby, uncollect your income, and uncollect your income. Lose about 4,000 goldish per turn. Actually, I think it was a little more, but anyway, what this will allow us to do is to grow at a fairly significantly increased rate and hopefully get our tier 4 and 5 up and running as quickly as possible. Then we got two big old battles. I was thinking that maybe we avoid this one because it'll probably destroy half this army, because there's nearly full stack here and the garrison, and this is our weakest army. But to speed matters along, I think we will fight this. Now, before we do, we'll probably want to power up this army in any way possible. Ooh, wait, there's another fight that we have available to us here, which is we gotta destroy this army before it recovers, because it's got some strong stuff, and it seems that any units that it gets back are still recovered at max tier. So let's not have those guys annoy us. Now, Rakash, we're going to take your Lich Priests, and we're going to give them both Forbidden Rods. Slaanesh, giggle. Hey, we are fighting Slaanesh, too. It's perfect. And now, let's see what else we can power them up with. Let's give you a Featherfoe Torque, and I think we had an armor of... wait. We had a Glittering Scales. Yes, yes. We'll give you the Glittering Scales and the Featherfoe Torque. Or should we spread those around? That's a question. You know what? Let's spread these around. Well, then again... You know what, pop them both on one unit, so that it can sort of debuff anything that it comes near to. The enemy does have Furies in their army, after all. Then, you're probably going to need an Obsidian... I was going to say Amulet, but... I don't really want to take those off of other lord or heroes, rather, and by the looks of it, we don't have any free ones. Alright, fine. You can take the Obsidian Trinket, I guess, just to reduce the damage slightly from those Forbidden Rods, and then you can do this... well, actually, we don't have a spare one for you, sir. You can, I guess, have the Charmed Shield. We'll probably take that off of you and give it to a prince or something, but not now. And then we'll give you the Crown of Command as well, in case we get heavily damaged. Unfortunately, the Scorpion is very, very badly beat up here, and it may not survive the fight any more than the rest of the army. Well, valiant defeat, high casualties. The enemy has 4 lords and heroes, lots of, well, just lots of everything. Let's see what we can do. Go. Alrighty, here we go. Last episode we had that massive, relatively difficult fight against the Dwellers of Zardoz, that book-holding rogue army, and I think this battle will be even tougher. I'm not even sure that we can win it, because this is a much weaker army than that other one was, and this is a lot of enemies. Plus, the best thing currently about this particular army is the fact that it has the Nehek Warriors Legion unit, the Osirian's Legion of the Underworld, Netherworld rather, and the problem with that unit against demonic factions is that almost the entire enemy army has magical damage, which means that the biggest thing about these guys being ethereal and having 75% physical resistance is relatively useless against most of the enemy force. Plus they just have a lot of heroes, which we don't have a really easy way of dealing with, and the fact that 2 Aluruses here will be able to spam that Lash of Slaanesh ain't so great either. But anyway, enough about that. Let's see if we can pull it off. Now, in terms of deployment, we have something of a decent setup here. We have a sort of, not hillside, but rather lakeside with a cliff. I decided to deploy over on this side simply because there's a little bit more clear area than there is over here. We gotta use this to protect our flanks, because there's no other way. The Slaaneshi, well, we can stop the Slaaneshi. Now, obviously, it would have been better to deploy even further back, like here, but I don't want a corner camp, so we will leave a space open for the enemy to get through here, so that we don't abuse the sort of side of the map. This, however, is natural terrain and not on the side of the map, so hopefully that'll be just fine. Anyway, we are going to do our best to annoy a unit of Hellstriders out here. I've taken a little bit of damage so far, and I've not yet gotten... Oh, okay, they just screamed in rage, and I think now I've... I was about to say they have not yet gotten annoyed enough to charge towards us, but I think they are now very much annoyed, and will be attempting to get at either our chariots or our Nehekara horse archers. Alright, fortunately these guys are reasonably heavily damaged, plus they're Hell Scourges, so while that debuff is fantastic, they do basically no damage whatsoever. So even if they do catch either one of these units, we should be fine. Down to half HP, and yes indeed, it looks like the entire enemy army is now moving towards us, with Hellstriders leading the way. Now if these guys are exposed out here all by themselves, they are going to get ripped apart. Though it's only 1 unit in, like, 2, well, nearly 2 stacks, so, yeah. It's not gonna be enough. There's also that darn Mirror Guard to consider. 110 armor, 56 melee defense, bolstering leadership, supreme vanity. Damn, melee defense plus 10 and melee attack plus 10, solid area augment for all those 4 heroes as well. Alright, well. It's a scary unit, and there's not much we can do about it because most of our army won't be able to handle that sort of thing. But we'll see. Anyway, it looks like the Hellstriders have stopped in place. They have stopped just outside the range of our skeleton archers because I guess they don't want to ride in and get arrowed down. That said, they are kind of stuck here. If they run, we'll just move forward and chase them while hosing them down with arrows with our fast movers. And if they stand here, they'll suffer the same treatment, essentially. And if they charge us, they'll suffer the same treatment again, so yeah. Sorry to this unit of Hellstriders. Plus, I think they're actually just waiting for the rest of the enemy army to arrive. They're just about ready to route a few more Hellstriders and Marauders to go down. A little swipe from one Hellstrider and from King Rakash here. There we go. Just to annoy the enemy as they attempt to run away. And run away they shall while we wait for the rest of the army to move forward. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit as that was enough of waiting for them to move. And there we go. Looks like some enemy Chaos Furies are going to come on down. Fortunately, we do have that Feather Foe Torque, though no Pigeon Plucker Pendant. It should be enough to make these guys relatively weak. And it's not like the Furies aren't relatively weak in the first place. Anyway, they will come down, but they are already fading away and will melt before they achieve really anything. I don't know what the heck was up with that one, but anyway. Here comes the rest of the enemy forces. First of the Lashes of Slaanesh will come down. We're going to pop the Joff's Incantation of Cursed Blades on our Skeleton Spears in the hopes of dishing out some damage to the enemy. And our Assyrians' Legion of the Netherworld will attempt to hold the flanks. At the very least, they should be quite effective against the enemy Hellstriders, but should try to watch out for the enemy Demonettes, who should have, once again, no problem at obliterating them. And we've started losing a few already, so there is that. The line is holding, at least for now, but for how long, it certainly remains to be seen. The enemy outnumber us heavily and outdamage us very heavily. They probably outdamage us more than they outnumber us, which is saying something. Alright, fortunately though, we do have the Allure of Death available to us and a Soul Blight to help us out a little bit against demonic factions and against the Slaneshi. This should be pretty solid as it reduces their damage, defense, and leadership, which is particularly good against those Demonettes and fragile demonic units. We are very much being overrun and the balance of power is in the enemy's favor, but we certainly expected that. The Assyrians' Legion of the Netherworld already, just having made contact with the enemy, is down to 20 to 15% HP, so we're gonna have to try to get them the heck out of there and hopefully try to keep them alive. Well, alive's a strong word, but you know what I mean. As to whether we can achieve that, it remains to be seen. King Rakash is dueling the enemy Herald of Slaanesh in the midst of the enemy forces. He does have a fairly decent set of items, so he won't die easily like this, but he is still surrounded, and on top of that, is going to need to pop that healing potion, lest he get ripped apart. The rest of the line is still holding, if just barely so, and it looks like our skeleton warriors and Tomb Guard have begun to melt away already. Perhaps this was a bad idea and too risky of a move, but we shall see. Once again, these guys are still holding the hill up here. We move the Hekar warriors and skeleton spears together, and are even going to send in some skeletal archers rather than allowing the enemy to go around them like this. Besides, we need to activate that Realm of Souls as fast as possible. We really would like to get those Ushabti on the field, and thus we need our units to actually die. Not that they would need all that much help dying, because they very much are. But faster Realm of Souls activation would be better. Anyway, we've sent in our skeleton archer chariots to try to back up the Assyrians' Legion of the Netherworld, or allow them to escape the piles of demonettes. This does force these guys into the melee, which they don't necessarily want to be in, but we need something to help hold the line and add a little bit of mass to it. Rakash is still fighting the enemy Herald of Slaanesh, who's now down to 30% of their HP, and we've got another Soul Blight coming down on the enemy, which is really nice. Alright, Flock of Joff still hovering overhead. They have not yet, I believe, dropped their bombs. They've gotten a few kills to their name, so that's not too bad. You're wondering why they haven't dropped their bombs? One of their units got stuck back here, but now they've managed to get out. And the bomb dropping can't happen as long as even a single one of your units is in melee. So one of the units got stuck, and then all the others were completely useless because of it. Fortunately, they did drop their bombs now, and I do imagine that is a decent bit of damage. Yeah, there we go. Up to 20k instantly from, what was it, 5k or something? Solid damage. And there we go, another Realm of Souls activation comes down. This was the tier 3, so finally Ushabti are ready to move on the field. There's a big old blob of demonettes up here, and the Ushabti will arise from the Realm of Souls and hopefully lay into those demonettes. There we go. Demonettes go flying all over the place. Granted, no magical damage on the Ushabti, but they do good anti-infantry work. And the demonettes are quite fragile, plus getting hit from the back like this while pinned by the skeleton horse archers and to some degree our chariots will allow those Ushabti to do great work. King Rakash has finally defeated the enemy Allurus in the middle of the fray. And the line is still holding, if just barely. Realm of Souls keeping us in it, though once again we have had to push more skeletal archers to the front, and I think 3 of our units of skeletal archers and our skeleton horse archers are all acting as melee infantry now. And we're still holding this hill, which is quite impressive considering the Mirror Guard and some Forsaken are here as well. But frankly, the Marauders that are up front are actually keeping a lot of the Mirror Guard and Forsaken back, which is preventing them from doing damage. The blob of the units getting into each other's way is actually very much working in our favor here. I'm going to pop another Joff's Incantation of Cursed Blades to apply a little bit more bleed effect to our units and continue holding the enemy off. It does look like the enemy right flank has collapsed. As soon as those Ushapti joined the fray, the Demonettes were basically obliterated. And let's see. I've been in this for, what, a minute so far? 56 kills, not too bad. Just click, yeah. Oh, for the love of... Why isn't there like a pin function for this? Anyway, 14k damage and 60 kills. Man, that took way too much effort. There's a pin function... Huh. It'd be nice in a replay. Maybe there is, and I just don't know about it. But anyway, with the enemy center and the left flank collapse, or our right flank, their left flank, but anyway, collapse, we were able to move Ushapti up to this hill where the Mirror Guard and the Forsaken are still fighting. However, Rakash leads the way now, and he should be able to start knocking out individual Mirror Guard, unlike the rest of our troops. And by the looks of it, that charge and that summoning actually managed to do it and allow us to carry the day. Massive amounts of damage on pretty much all of our units. Our Scorpion down to like tiny, less than 10% of its HP, and another couple of hits would have brought it down. Our Flock of Job, pretty much everything is nearly dead. And yeah, a very, very close fight generally speaking, but a great one. And well, that is probably the major strength of the Slaaneshi faction right now. They do have enough territory, I think, to still be able to recover an army or two, but it will probably give us at least a few turns of reprieve and conquest. Ooh, alright, well that went, well, let's say decent. It went better than I thought it would. We still took heavy damage, but frankly, only you losing a single unit of skeleton spears isn't too bad. Isn't too bad at all. I thought we'd lose a lot more units, especially as the enemy had the Mirror Guard and so many heroes that we had to deal with. We didn't really get much use out of the Tomb Scorpion, but unfortunately this was a bad matchup for it when damaged, as Tomb Scorpions have extremely low melee defense at around 20, 25, something like that, and thus it couldn't really contribute to the battle. The Flock of Job did well with their bomb drop and the biggest blob of enemies. Lots of mileage out of our skeleton horse archers and skeleton archer units in general, in particularly quite a bit more than our regular skeleton archers, because these guys first expended most of their ammunition and then got to go into melee. The Usurian's Legion of the Netherworld, one of the better units, or one of the, well, just a great regiment of renown generally speaking, or whatever it's called, Legion of Legend, I don't know. This thing got absolutely obliterated by the demon nets, and that's hardly surprising because they're ethereal, but obviously all the demon units have magical damage, so you gotta be real careful with positioning there, and it was a battle about pretty much all about positioning. But anyway, we're gonna occupy the place like so. Only to trade it, mind you, and a mission successful. Lovely. Storm of Necromancy, and we're here for at least a turn. Unfortunately, we can't go into Great Dynasty's stance, but oh well. I guess we're going to use Ooh, wait, actually. We do have access to War Dancers if we want to get some high damage dealing stuff out, as well as Great Forest Eagles if we want, but I think that'll probably have to go to an army with a bunch of carrion units, and it'll have to specifically be a unit that's tuned towards the Ulat worship with carrion damage. I've actually been kind of also maybe thinking about not actually having Rakash be our Scorpion Lord, simply having seen that the actual Scorpion Lords with Treacherous exists, and melee defense plus 10 is pretty significant for Scorpions with their, okay, 27 melee defense, whatever. Now wait, it was probably 25 to start off with, and the Veterancy raised it up, but anyway, yeah, I'll have to think about that. It will take 2 turns to get War Dancers here. Also, what do we have out of Avalorn? We have White Lions. They have Great Eagles as well, so we could definitely pump up the jam. I mean, the Eagles. Certainly interesting. We have White Lions available as well. But I'm generally very happy with the Eagles, especially after the Imra campaign. I just want to see, so we got 200 armor-piercing weapon damage, 55-45 on the Forest Eagles, versus 65-40, but non-armor-piercing damage on the regular Great Eagles. Interesting. And they both cause bleed, I take it? And they do. So the Great Forest Eagles have a little bit higher melee defense and a little bit lower melee attack, but also have armor piercing, whereas these ones do not. But, I mean, the Great Forest Eagles are also surprisingly quite a bit more expensive, but I think this is due to proximity of the enemy factions. Well, it only takes 1 turn to get the High Elven Eagles in here. I'm actually quite tempted to do so. Seems like it would be quite nice. You know what, let's get an eagle in here. And in fact, I feel like we should get 2 eagles in here. I'm tempted by the War Dancers, but I think we need to do as much damage as we can rather than sitting around, essentially, and recruiting. We will probably get some War Dancers in an army. Frankly, 4 War Dancers would be a significant power-up to a particular force, so it's certainly something to look into. Anyway, Skeleton Archers, I think we're going to lose one of you and replace you with another Eagle unit. Simply because we need the other melee units to attempt to hold ground and do that for us. Eagles. There they go. They can keep the Flock of Jaff company. Granted, these ones are the ones that won't have as much armor-piercing damage and will not have as much melee defense, but hopefully they can sort of intersperse themselves to the lines of melee troops and apply that bleed, which is quite solid. Anyway, King Rakash. Now, what do we get you? We do have one of these available to us. We could just go Neru. We could go... well, no. Xar the Faces with that 20% movement range is also quite nice as well. Speed plus 20 is relatively useless, and melee attack when fighting in desert is relatively useless as well. Tram is for chariots and for Tomb Guard, which isn't particularly helpful. You know what? I think we're just going to hold on to his points until he can get Plunderer of the East and move through his entire unique line. It starts at rank 15 anyway, so it's probably a decent option for us at the time. So, yeah, let's do that. Now, as I said earlier, we don't have a lot of time, so let's deal with whatever else we have to deal with. You have another big battle ahead of you, and Meshep, Lich Priest of Light. Ah, yes, you're going to move up here, and then we're going to pop Remarenef, and Great Dynasty stands towards Eldar Spire. Like so, we'll auto-resolve this in a second. Just gotta move the other army up to A, Leech XP, and B, make sure that we take less damage. You can go right there as well. I mean, you could pop this guy into one of the armies. Once again, wait, here in Lich Priest of Light, Lich Priest of Nehekara. Oh. Where did I want to put the second Lich Priest of Nehekara in? We already have one of Nehekara in King Raprafas's army. Frankly, you, other Lich Priest of Nehekara, would probably be better off in this army, in Rahobi's army, meaning you could go around this way. Alright, fine, you're gonna go around this way, rather than up here to these guys. So just got a lot of heroes. Tomb Prince Necrotect, you're already a Lich Priest. You could actually use a Lich Priest of Light as well, potentially. I wish we had access to the Lore of Fire, it would be better here. And obviously you're going into this army. Alright, that's good. Let's auto-resolve you guys. Eldar Spire. Assuming no one will die. Okay, good. Hey, we got a Sword of Bloodshed out of that. That's nice. Occupy the place, and I think right now, not from Marinef, because he's a Lich Priest. King Raprafas is the only one who can make good use of this. I mean, technically... yeah, we have the Obsidian Blade on King Rakash, so yeah, Sword of Bloodshed. That works a little better. Next up, Storm and Necromancy, that's all fine. And assuming that we don't have any other buildings to build, Rehobi, it's time for you to fight your fight as well. Go into Great Dynasty's stance, hit off Wub Heartgorge, and he will draw out the garrison of Hag Grief, which will make this another interesting and potentially difficult fight. Pyrrhic victory this time, however, rather than the valiant defeat that we saw previous battle. Just depends on how much mileage the enemy can get out of the first force before the second force arrives. Let's find out. Go. Alrighty, here we go again. These guys really need to be destroyed so they can't recover, but it's once again going to be a tough fight. We gotta deal with these guys and expend our ammunition doing so, and then deal with the arrival of the garrison out of Hag Grief. Anyway, once again we're gonna start the battle off with a nice shotgun blast from the Vanguard deployed Sepulchral Stalkers, who do a little bit of damage to some of those boar boys, and then these ones do a little bit of damage to well, whatever the heck they were firing at back here. Chosen of the Gods are going to target the enemy Minotaurs and the Bestigors as best they can. Mostly because that darn enemy Cygor is hidden in the trees, and that would probably be a waste of ammunition, at the very least on the Chosen of the Gods. We've got our Screaming Skull Catapult trying to obliterate that Ragnarok Spider, who is attempting to do the dance to avoid fire, but at the same time is also thus not attempting to join the fray. Lots of enemy fast movers in this particular army, but I guess Beastmen armies are generally almost entirely made up of fast movers, as their infantry moves pretty darn quick as well. 45 speed, and that's with the reduction on the Bestigors, reduction from poison by 20%, so yeah, everything's quick over there. Anyway, Boar Boys and Centaurs attempt to charge in and pin at least a few of our Sepulchral Stalkers in place, and by the looks of it, bring a couple of them down. Gonna have to back them off behind our lines of spears and Tomb Guard. Looks like the enemy army, though damaged, is still cohesive enough to charge our lines and still do damage. They did recover like 4 or 6 units or something like that in the time that it took them to come down here. So they are making use of it. Once again, gotta love those anti-large halberds on the Sepulchral Stalkers. A rare thing to have monstrous infantry with halberds after all. And they should be doing decent damage at holding off the Boar Boys and whatnot. Their weapon strength is, however, a little bit low at only 70, which compared to, I mean, we've seen a few of our like units of melee infantry have weapon strength of 50 and such. 88 weapon strength, 88 on those Savage Orc Boar Boy biggins. I mean, they have more weapon strength, and they have 4 times the number of Sepulchral Stalkers. But at the same time, once again, Sepulchral Stalkers have a lot of things going for them. And different unit type and all that. And they have range capability and stock and whatnot. Anyway, the brawl is still happening back here. It looks like the Ragnarok has finally been brought down by that Screaming Skull Catapult, which has now switched to the Cygor, which is still chucking those darn rocks out of the trees, and somehow managing to do so between the trees and not having this thing interfere. Looks like he wants to go after our Lord now, though he's gotten a decent few shots with 72 kills and 18k damage into our melee line, having knocked out a decent pile of the Tomb Guard and the skeleton spears alike. Anyway, looks like the enemy center line is no longer existent, and the left and right flank are where the rest of the battle is happening. We've also moved our units of fast movers, our own units of fast movers out. The chariots and the Hekar horsemen have moved around like this, just like they did previously when we fought on this map, and are looking to obliterate the Cygor and chase down any other enemy fast movers like the Spider Riders and the Boar Boys, and prevent them from entering the fray. Just in case the Boar Boys out here, we did still send the skeleton spears and the Sepulchral Stalkers in. And damn, more shots from that damn Cygor. Alright, really gotta bring that thing down, or at the very least lock it into combat, but fortunately the Nehek horsemen have pretty much arrived. Chosen of the Gods are still firing away at those boar boys, can't be letting them wade into the fray once more with that 88 melee attack. Though by the looks of it, by ignoring them, it does allow a unit of Centaurs to charge, but they will shatter. Alright, enemy lord is still here, and it looks like the lord of this particular army, no matter which lord, because before it was Abhishek Bloodgatherer, and he was unbreakable, and it looks like this lord, despite being a different one, is unbreakable as well. Which is kind of interesting. Nonetheless, unlike Abhishek Bloodgatherer, this being a Shaman Lord is not going to be nearly as threatening, simply because we can just obliterate it from range, and obliterate it by the looks of it. We shall. Chosen of the Gods, and can't even see the guy, and the Sepulchral Stalkers and the Screaming Skull Catapult explode that poor Shaman into bits, into literal bits. Alrighty, well, he's out. We've lost a lot of ammunition, however, in that particular fight. The Chosen of the Gods are down to their 30%, and the Screaming Skull Catapult is down to about the same, and the Dark Elves have not yet even joined the fray. The Cygor has been hunted down, and I'm going to speed up the battle a teensy bit as the rest of the enemies move forward. Oh, looks like a unit of boar boys has come back, but not for long, as they get ripped apart by the Chosen of the Gods and the Sepulchral Stalkers. Very nice. Alright, and he's gonna book... Oh, I was gonna say he's gonna run to the safety of the Dark Elven lines, and yeah, that didn't work out so well for him. Oh, poor guy. Alright, I feel slightly bad. He thought he saw the safety of all of this. Though frankly, the Dark Elves might have just killed him off because they could. I wouldn't have been surprised. Anyway, looks like the enemy army is here, and they do have a lot of dark shards to their name. Gotta be careful about that, as though the Sepulchral Stalkers and the Tomb Guard and whatnot are armored, they've got armor piercing on those dark shards. Gonna get a few shotgun blasts off into the enemy mainline infantry as they rush towards us. But we're gonna have to back off, as a lot of our Sepulchral Stalkers are down to close to half HP from fighting all those large units from the enemy army. Alright, Skeletal Spears going to just reposition themselves very slightly. And it looks like the Bleak Swords wanted to attempt to chase down Sepulchral Stalkers or Nehek Horsemen or something. But there's no need. Alrighty, and ooh, just as the enemy army moves in, they activate Murderous Prowess. This actually worked out perfectly for the enemy here, as this was basically the ideal time for that thing to activate. Usually it activates too early or too late, but not so lucky for us this time around. And on top of that, chill winds coming down through our battle lines. One of our Tomb Guard units is basically just about ready to melt away. We have popped the Neru's Incantation of Cursed, or Job's Incantation of Cursed Blades and Neru's Incantation of Protection on him to try to keep him alive, and have moved in the melee Ushabti to try to help them out. Tomb Princes are in here somewhere as well, but they're so tiny when they're off their mounts that they're kind of hard to spot. Okay, there's one right there. Right? Or is that a Tomb Prince? I can't even tell. No, I think it's just one of the Tomb Guard. Anyway, enemies are still charging in, though we do get a nice rear charge into them with our Nehekara chariots. Skeleton chariots? Skeleton chariots. Nehekara horsemen with skeletal chariots. Alright, and they'll move right through those lines of Bleak Swords and Dread Spears. Plus, this is a significant morale shock and allows us to pin them against the Tomb Guard's skeletons and Sepulchral Stalkers. Those aren't the only units causing havoc in the back line, however, as the other unit of Sepulchral Stalkers and the Nehekara Horsemen are out there as well. Gotta prevent the enemy range units from firing, and to chase down those that were forced to rout by a Skull Storm from our Lord. Oh, my PC's hiccuping a little bit. Might be a little bit too many effects on the screen, so sorry about the frame drops. Hopefully it doesn't crash, but it looks like we're okay. Happening a little bit this episode. Oh well. Let's see how we're doing here. Looks like the balance of power is at about 85% in our favor now. The enemy army is in pretty bad shape. The two Tomb Guard or two Tomb Princes rather, are going to head towards the enemy Sorceress at about 9 minutes. And we really need her to stop with those darn chill winds. Alright, what are you doing, dude? attack. It's just running around. Alrighty, there we go. Alrighty, well, that's probably going to take them a while. Their melee attack is only at 40 until we can get buffs on them. That's pretty much what they're going to do. Similar to Tomb Guard and other units of skeletal infantry, they're a rather defensive sort of hero and do take a while to do any kind of damage. And that despite the fact that the enemy, the sorceress's melee defense is down to only 28. This is two Tomb Princes quacking away. She's not even down to half HP after a full minute, which is a bit of a shame, but well, and they can keep on trying. I do wish that Tomb Princes, or hopefully SFO adds this at some point, certain things have, you get a choice of weapon. I'm trying to remember, I think it's Black Arc Reavers on the Dark Elven roster. You can sort of choose to give them the Great Sword, you can choose to give them the Hand and Bow, and I think you can choose to give them dual blades as well. But either way, it's nice to be able to choose what their role is, and I'd like the same thing, if possible, for the Tomb Princes. Alright, our Lich High Priest and some more Tomb Guard have joined in, and finally, after nearly 2 minutes, the Sorceress will rout, if not die. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to give the Tomb Princes a different type of weapon set to make them a little bit more of an offensive rather than a defensive character. Anyway, out here, I believe this Death Hag has managed to keep a bunch of infantry in place for a while. She was actually just before this holding the skeletal spears, but they got hit with a chill wind and routed. Blackguard of Nagaron have just joined the battle while the rest of the enemy army has pretty much been destroyed. If you're wondering why the Blackguard of Nagaron have not been in so long, we switched to firing on them with a Screaming Skull catapult while they were all the way back here, and they were doing the dance trying to avoid the shots for pretty much the entire fight. At least until we ran out of ammunition on the Screaming Skull catapult, which we eventually did. One more Skull Storm, do a little bit of damage to these guys, but it looks like we're going to have to kill them off manually. The two Tomb Princes have also moved in with the Tomb Guard, blending in nicely with their minions there. And trying to go after that Death Hag while we move in to try to destroy this last unit of Blackguard of Nagaron. I'm surprised that they remained on the field rather than routing, considering the entire enemy army is pretty much gone at this point. But perhaps once the Death Hag is gone, so will the Tomb Guard decide, or Tomb Guard, Blackguard of Nagaron decide to rout as well. And speaking of the Death Hag, she is down to 1000 HP, wavering, and a couple more hits should see her off. Lich Priest once again going to join the fray as well to help out those Tomb Guard and Tomb Princes, and the Death Hag will rout, and the Blackguard of Nagaron will indeed follow suit as well. Plus, they were starting to take damage as well. Necrotech got, let's see, just out of curiosity, well, about 11k damage, not too bad. That Toxic Venom is working for him. Probably would have been a little bit better if he was on a chariot, but in this particular army, at the very least while we currently have the Chosen of the Gods in here, the Necrotech does need to stay close to power them up and have them hitting a little bit harder. Anyway, we're going to do a little bit of chasing to make sure that this army is destroyed, but we'll do it off screen. Or we will not, because we're done, and while we were taking care of that Death Hag, where most of that chasing went down. Ooh, alright, there we go, another fairly big and difficult fight. Lots of mileage out of that Dark Sorceress there with those chill winds mowing down our infantry over and over again. There wasn't too much we could do about it, unfortunately. The Tomb Princes are rather weak, especially at the start of their levels, and just not capable of knocking out a unit. They were whacking away at that Sorceress for quite a while, and yeah. Anyway, we sacrificed a couple of our units of Skeleton Spears for for the Realm of Souls, which was very much necessary. Got lots of damage on our chariots, but most of that, I'd wager, was from, well, chasing enemies down, rather than actually dishing it out, unlike the Sepulchral Stalkers, which fought for the entire time. We ran out of ammunition on the Screaming Skull Catapults and the Chosen of the Gods as well, so this is about the maximum amount of damage that, well, at least the Screaming Skulls can do. And the Chosen of the Gods, however, were also helping chase stuff down, so they contributed a little bit more via that as well. Now, I think because we'll have to auto-resolve, hopefully, these guys, assuming we can reach them, we're going to bind souls rather than Endless March. And please tell me you're still in range of the place. Alright, you are, meaning we should be able to auto-resolve both Earthing Rod, Skeletal Steed for Prince Sarasva, and... wait. Go here. Alright, how to resolve these guys outside the settlement to not take additional damage. Hopefully this doesn't hurt us too bad. Don't do it. Alright, now we're good. And this time we will actually take Endless March so that we can move out faster next turn. Not because we care about the relatively limited amount of gold. Rehobi, Occupy Hag Grief. And there we are. Assured Assailant, another Warrior Bane, nice find. Dwellers of Zardog destroyed, so we don't actually have to deal with them anymore, which is just great. While we're here, we're going to switch briefly to the Worship of Joff, because, well, actually, no, our replenishment is actually fine, so it's not necessary. Maybe then to the Worship of Tra. We have a chariot building here, do we? But it'll take 2 turns to build anything up, and I just don't think we want to stay here for 2 turns. We could just rather build 1 skeleton here and then another one next turn instead. Storm of Necromancy, submissions secured, and there we go. Alright, with that, folks, we're out of time. 2 big battles where we actually had to work for the victory, which is always a nice thing, and hopefully more to find next time. Next time we'll move through the Circle of Destruction down to Hotek's Column, and hopefully knock out the Ancestral Throng before they can come back and try to push these armies up towards the Altar of Ultimate Darkness and deal with Malekith, while Khatep continues with what he's doing down on Ulthuan. Stay tuned for more Khatep. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.